On October 22, 2023, the Philippines and China engaged in a blame game following two separate collisions in the disputed South China Sea. The incidents occurred near Second Thomas Shoal in the hotly contested Spratly Islands, where China often deploys vessels to assert its territorial claims. According to the Philippine government, a collision between a Chinese Coast Guard vessel and a Filipino resupply boat was caused by the dangerous maneuvers of the Chinese ship, which resulted in the vessels making contact. In a second incident, a Philippine Coast Guard vessel was reportedly bumped by a Chinese maritime militia vessel. China countered by accusing the Philippine boat of deliberately creating trouble by reversing into a Chinese fishing vessel. The South China Sea has been a long-standing point of contention, with China claiming nearly the entire region despite an international ruling against its claims. The United States, condemning China's actions, voiced concern over the safety of Filipino service members involved in legal resupply missions. These incidents reflect a continuation of the maritime disputes between the Philippines and China, which have previously led to confrontations, water cannon use, and close encounters between vessels. The international community, including the ASEAN states, seems concerned about the simmering tensions and their potential for further escalation in this strategic and heavily traversed waterway. These recent events in the South China Sea have ignited a palpable sense of panic and chaos as the Philippines confronts China over contested shoals. What was once a discrete maritime dispute has erupted into the limelight as the Philippines deliberately exposes China's assertive actions through what they've coined an assertive transparency campaign. Video footage capturing encounters is broadcasted to local media, while journalists, including those from the BBC, are ferried into the disputed waters. This approach unravels China's gray zone operations, actions falling just short of armed conflict, but rife with provocation. This unorthodox strategy has caught China off guard, prompting a temporary reduction in its activities. During this relative calm, the Philippines has seized the opportunity to execute resupply missions to its outpost on Second Thomas Shoal, where the aging Sierra Madre, a World War II-era landing ship, is marooned. Nevertheless, China appears convinced that the Sierra Madre's days are numbered, and it's playing a waiting game, anticipating the Philippines' eventual evacuation of Marines from the deteriorating vessel. Amid this escalating chaos, the seismic shift in foreign policy by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., embracing stronger ties with the United States and challenging China's incursions into its exclusive economic zone, has introduced another layer of complexity. Reports suggest that the Philippines is not only ferrying food and water to the Sierra Madre, but is also clandestinely transporting construction materials, like cement and scaffolding, to reinforce the ship's crumbling structure. As the Sierra Madre edges perilously closer to collapse, panic and chaos have surged on both sides. The Philippines is resolute in maintaining its presence on Ayungin Shoal, while China is equally unwavering in asserting its dominance and expediting the Sierra Madre's downfall. In the midst of escalating turbulence, the critical question looms large. What will transpire when the Sierra Madre ultimately succumbs to the relentless forces of decay? Will the Philippines endeavor to ground another vessel on the shoal? Will China endeavor to seize control of the reef? And how will the United States react to this high-stakes drama? The South China Sea is a cauldron of uncertainty, and the stage is set for further pandemonium as this riveting saga unfolds. The BRP Sierra Madre, a grounded World War II-era vessel hosting a small military contingent since 1999, represents the Philippines' claim over Ayungin Shoal within its exclusive economic zone in the West Philippine Sea, despite China's claims of sovereignty over the South China Sea. The recent collision between Philippine vessels and Chinese ships in the South China Sea has brought to light the ongoing tensions over the maintenance of the BRP Sierra Madre, stationed in Ayungin Shoal. The Armed Forces of the Philippines, AFP spokesperson Colonel Medal Aguilar, revealed that the Philippine vessels involved in the resupply mission were carrying materials for the repair and upkeep of the BRP Sierra Madre. This disclosure came during a press conference with the Department of Foreign Affairs, emphasizing that the materials were intended to maintain and repair the ship without specifying further details. At the heart of the South China Sea dispute lies a long-standing conflict over territorial claims in a region that has witnessed centuries of contestation. Recent years have seen a marked intensification of tensions, with China's expansive territorial assertions encompassing both land parcels and their surrounding waters, fueling anger and resistance among rival claimants, including Vietnam, the Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. The dispute is rooted in the South China Sea's critical significance as a major trade route. According to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, over 21% of the world's global trade traverses these waters. Additionally, these sea lanes are home to bountiful fishing grounds, supporting the livelihoods of millions of people across the region, with more than half of the world's fishing vessels operating here. Although the disputed paracels and spratlys remain largely uninhabited, they are believed to harbor untapped natural resources, with the extent of these resources largely inferred from the mineral wealth of neighboring regions. China's claims are underpinned by its assertive New 10-Dash Line, which delineates a vast territorial expanse. China contends that its historical rights extend back centuries, emphasizing that the Paracel and Spratly Islands have always been integral components of Chinese territory. However, critics argue that China's claims lack specificity and that the New 10-Dash Line, featured on Chinese maps, encompasses virtually the entire South China Sea, but lacks precise coordinates. Ambiguity also surrounds whether China's claim pertains solely to land territory within the 9-Dash Line or extends to all maritime space within it. Vietnam contradicts China's historical narrative, asserting active dominion over the Paracels and Spratlys since the 17th century, substantiated by historical records. The Philippines, through its geographical proximity to the Spratly Islands, lays claim to a share of this contested territory. Malaysia and Brunei assert their rights based on the economic exclusion zones demarcated under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. The South China Sea dispute has been characterized by clashes between nations, particularly between Vietnam and China and the Philippines and China. Notable historical events include China's 1974 seizure of the Paracels from Vietnam, resulting in the loss of over 70 Vietnamese troops. In 1988, a skirmish in the Spratlys saw approximately 60 Vietnamese sailors killed. Maritime confrontations like the 2012 standoff between China and the Philippines in the Scarborough Shoal have further exacerbated tensions. Additional complexities emerged, including allegations of Chinese naval interference with Vietnamese exploration activities in 2012, prompting large-scale anti-China protests. On the other side, Manila's decision to bring Beijing to a UN tribunal in 2013 to contest its claims under UNCLOS marked a significant turning point. The introduction of a Chinese drilling rig near the Paracel Islands in 2014 ignited multiple collisions between Vietnamese and Chinese vessels. In 2019, the Philippines accused a Chinese trawler of ramming a Filipino fishing boat. The situation escalated in early 2023 as the Philippines reported instances of Chinese vessels employing lasers to temporarily blind Filipino boat crews and engaging in perilous maneuvers near Filipino vessels. These events underscore the volatile nature of the South China Sea dispute and its potential for further escalation on a global scale. The recent incident in the disputed Second Thomas Shoal in the South China Sea has led to strong statements from the Philippines, which accuses Chinese Coast Guard vessels of intentional collisions. Tensions between the Philippines and China are escalating, with both sides blaming each other for the confrontation. According to the Philippines, Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia vessels deliberately harassed and hit the Philippine supply boat and Coast Guard ship during a resupply mission. Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro characterized this as a serious escalation of illegal activities conducted by the Chinese government. He emphasized that these actions were in violation of international law and showed a complete disregard for international norms. In response, the Philippines summoned Chinese Ambassador Huang Xilian to condemn what they termed a reckless and illegal act by the Chinese government. The Philippines has expressed appreciation for the support by its allies and like-minded nations, including the United States, Japan, Australia, Germany, Canada, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and the European Union, in denouncing China's aggressive and expansionist actions. This incident has heightened tensions and is indicative of the broader challenge the Philippines faces in asserting its sovereignty in the South China Sea amid China's increasing assertiveness in the region. the Philippines, under the leadership of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., is pivoting toward closer ties with the United States and actively contesting China's territorial claims, as opposed to the more pro-China stance of the previous administration. Likewise, the Philippines is revising its military modernization plan to prioritize territorial and coastal defense, with a focus on safeguarding Thitu Island, Pag-asa Island by the Philippines, and other disputed South China Sea territories. The ongoing modernization program, known as Horizon 3, was initially delayed due to budget constraints. Still, recent confrontations with China have prompted Manila to accelerate its acquisition efforts, securing a $793 million defense spending allocation for 2024. These acquisitions include aircraft like C-130 J-30 Super Hercules tactical airlifters, BrahMos missile units from India, Axro-class gunboats from Israel, landing dock platforms from Indonesia, corvettes from South Korea, and offshore patrol vessels. Horizon 3 is expected to cost 500 billion pesos over the next 6 years, with financing details yet to be finalized, although offers of assistance have been received from countries like France, Spain, and South Korea to supply submarines. The Chinese government has responded to the recent collision incidents in the South China Sea by defending its actions and asserting its territorial claims over the region. According to China, the Chinese Coast Guard vessels took lawful actions against trespassing in Chinese territorial waters and were engaged in preventing the transportation of illegal construction materials. China's stance is firmly rooted in its assertion of territorial sovereignty over the South China Sea, which is encapsulated by its 9-dash line. The Chinese government contends that these territorial claims are based on historical rights that date back centuries, dating the Paracel and Spratly Island chains as integral parts of the Chinese nation. China has also argued that its actions in the South China Sea are consistent with international law, and it characterizes these actions as necessary to defend its territorial claims. Furthermore, the Chinese government has expressed concerns over the involvement of the United States in the matter. China has criticized the U.S. statements, labeling them as disregarding the facts and being provocative. China contends that it is acting within its rights to safeguard its territorial claims in the South China Sea, and that other states should respect its actions in the region. China maintains that the South China Sea is not a hunting ground for countries outside the region, suggesting that the U.S. has no business meddling in the issue. Beijing firmly rejects the 2016 International Tribunal ruling, which found that its sweeping claims to the South China Sea have no legal basis. While China perceives its actions as measured and within the bounds of international law, the recent water cannon incident is seen as a warning to the Philippines. China continues to demand the removal of the grounded Sierra Madre, citing prior Philippine commitments despite Manila's denials. As the tensions persist, China underscores its position and responds to international pressure by defending its territorial claims, despite global condemnation. The United States' role is significant in the escalating tensions surrounding the BRP Sierra Madre, a grounded ship turned military outpost in the South China Sea. While the U.S. is not a claimant in the territorial dispute, it maintains a mutual defense treaty with the Philippines, under which it would come to the Philippines' aid in the event of an armed attack on its vessels and forces. This treaty underscores the ironclad nature of the U.S.-Philippines alliance, as emphasized by U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. The U.S. considers the South China Sea crucial to its national interests, and its support for the Philippines has raised concerns in Beijing. China has accused the U.S. of inciting and supporting the Philippines' attempts to overhaul and reinforce the BRP Sierra Madre, and of sensationalizing the South China Sea issue. That's it from today's video. If you liked this video and found it insightful, then do